A single flame flickers in the void, its light neither pure nor corrupt but defiant. This is the flame Lucifer carried as he fell, the spark Faust sold his soul to grasp, and the inferno Dante dared to chart. The left-hand path is not a road. It is an infernal waltz between creation and dissolution, a dance where the dancer becomes the fire, the music, and the ash. To step onto this path is to sever the umbilical cord of celestial permission, to trade the comfort of answers for the terror of infinite questions. Consider the myth of Faust, immortalized by Goethe's tragedy. A scholar, disillusioned by the hollow certitudes of theology and science, summons Mephistopheles, not to damn his soul but to reclaim it. "I am the spirit that negates," the demon declares, revealing the left-hand path's core tenet, destruction as genesis. Faust's pact is no mere bargain with evil. It is a ritual of inversion where the seeker becomes both sacrificer and sacrificed. His story mirrors the Kabbalistic klepot, the shells of impurity that encase the divine light. To traverse these desolate realms, Thormiel, the twin gods of chaos, Gamaliel, the obscene ones, is to dissolve the illusion of a fixed self. The klepot does not punish, it unveils. Lucifer too is unveiled here, not as Satan but as Prometheus unchained. In Milton's Paradise Lost, the fallen angel proclaims, "To reign is worth ambition though in hell." This is no villain's lament, it is a declaration of sovereignty. The Luciferian ethos rejects the cosmic hierarchy that demands submission to an inscrutable god. Nietzsche's Zarathustra echoes this, roaring, "Dead are all gods, now we will that the Übermensch live." The Übermensch, the overman, is no tyrant. He is the one who stares into the abyss until the abyss becomes a mirror, reflecting not fear but potential. Carl Jung called this process shadow work, the integration of the repressed, grotesque fragments of the psyche. Yet the left-hand path takes Jung's theory into uncharted territory. It does not seek balance, it seeks annihilation. Kenneth Grant, the occult successor to Aleister Crowley, wrote of Typhonian entities, alien intelligences that dwell in the night side of Eden. These forces, he claimed, are not external but dormant within the human mind. To invoke them, as in the Gosha, is to confront the 72 demons catalogued in the Key of Solomon. Baal, the hoarse-voiced king, Astaroth, whose breath rots flesh, Andra's sower of discord. These are not monsters under the bed. They are the bed itself, the hidden architecture of desire and dread. Christopher S. Hyatt's The Psychopath's Bible weaponizes this idea, framing psychopathy as a spiritual discipline. The normal man is a lie, Hyatt writes, arguing that morality is a collective hallucination. His work is a grenade tossed into the temple of the self-help industry. No affirmations, no forgiveness, only the cold glare of self-ownership. Yet Hyatt's psychopath is not a murderer. He is an iconoclast, a surgeon of the soul who amputates the tumors of guilt and obligation. The danger, of course, is that the surgeon's scalpel can slip. Tantra, often diluted into exoticized yoga retreats, holds a darker key. Its left-handed Varma Marga prescribes rituals that would make even Crowley pause. Meditating atop corpses, consuming forbidden substances, using sexuality not for pleasure but as a portal to the divine. The Vijayana Bhairava Tantra instructs, in the terror of a lion's roar, in the anguish of a loved one's death, there the goddess dances. This is transcendence through transgression, a deliberate shattering of taboos to expose the raw nerve of consciousness. Sigils, borrowed from grimoires like the Key of Solomon, distill this chaos into a single glyph. Austin Osman Spare, the occultist who rebelled against Crowley's dogma, devised a method to kill the sigil, charging it with desire, then erasing it from conscious thought. The act is a microcosm of the left-hand path, will made manifest through negation. The alphabet of desire, Spare called it, a language spoken not in words but in the silent grammar of the subconscious. What binds these threads, Lucifer's flame, Faust's gamble, the klepot's void? A singular proposition. The self is a lie waiting to be unraveled. Identity is not discovered but forged in the crucible of contradiction. To walk the left-hand path is to become both sculptor and marble, to carve away everything that is not you until only the unnameable remains. Dante understood this. His journey through hell was not a descent but an ascent in reverse. By confronting the infernal, he glimpsed the celestial. The path's end, as T.S. Eliot wrote, is to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. But beware, this knowledge is not a trophy, it is a virus. Once awakened, it cannot be unlearned. The flame that illuminates also consumes. Light is not born, it is seized, stolen, forged in the crucible of defiance. The myth of Lucifer, frozen in dogma as a cautionary tale, hides a far more subversive truth. Rebellion is the womb of enlightenment. In the Vulgate Bible, Lucifer's name means light-bearer, but his true title might be ignis mutatio, fire of metamorphosis. This is not the devil of Sunday sermons. This is the archetype of the unbound self, the eternal insurgent against cosmic tyranny. Milton's Lucifer, exiled from heaven, roars, "Here at least we shall be free, here we may reign secure, and in my choice to reign is worth ambition though in hell." These lines are not a villain's lament, they are a manifesto. Lucifer's fall is not a punishment but an emancipation, a refusal to kneel before a deity whose love is conditional, whose light demands obedience. The left-hand path adopts this stance, to worship nothing, not even oneself, but to become the locus of power. Aleister Crowley distilled this into his infamous law of the lemma. Every man and every woman is a star, not a follower, not a servant, a celestial body with its own gravity, its own destiny. Nietzsche's Übermensch emerges here, not as a philosophical abstraction but as a lived ideal. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he declares, "He who cannot obey himself will be commanded." The Luciferian echoes this, replacing divine commandment with self-authored will, but this is no libertine free-for-all. The will in question is true will, Crowley's term for the occult force that aligns the individual with their cosmic purpose. To discover it requires a descent into what the Kabbalah calls Daath, the abyss of knowledge, a void where all illusions of identity dissolve. Kenneth Grant, threading Crowley's legacy into darker territories, linked this abyss to the Qliphoth's tunnels of Set. These are not mere symbols but psychic landscapes. Thormiel, the twin-headed realm of anti-gods, mirrors the split of the self into ego and shadow. To traverse it is to confront the primal schism, the realization that even divinity is dual, fractured, hungry. Grant wrote of Typhonian currents, cosmic energies that bypass morality entirely, flowing from the outside of human understanding. To channel them is to risk possession not by demons, but by the raw, unmediated forces of the unconscious. Christopher S. Hyatt's The Psychopath's Bible radicalizes this further. The psychopath is the ultimate individual, he argues, unburdened by the cancer of empathy. Hyatt's provocation is deliberate. He frames psychopathy not as a pathology but as a praxis of liberation. The Luciferian, like the psychopath, rejects the slave morality Nietzsche condemned, the guilt, the shame, the endless appeasement of external judges. Yet Hyatt's work carries a caveat. To play with fire, one must first become fire. The uninitiated risks self-immolation. This tension pulses through the Gosha, a medieval grimoire listing 72 demons. Baal, the first entry, is depicted as a three-headed monstrosity, cat-toed man who grants invisibility and cunning. But invisibility to whom? To society's gaze, to one's own conscience. The left-hand path reimagines these entities as facets of the psyche. To invoke Baal is to awaken the feral cunning society suppresses. To evoke Astaroth, the demoness of forbidden knowledge, is to reclaim the intellect's untamed edges. As Crowley noted in the Book of Lies, the demons are portions of the human brain. Even Dante's Inferno holds Luciferian secrets. At the pit of hell, Satan is frozen in ice, weeping tears of blood, a grotesque inversion of the martyr. Yet three faces leer from his single head, red, yellow, black, symbolizing impotence, ignorance, and hatred. This is the trinity of the uninitiated soul, the antithesis of the Holy Trinity. To the left-hand path practitioner, Satan's paralysis is a warning. Rebellion without self-mastery leads not to freedom but stagnation. Lucifer's flame must be focused, not squandered. Tantra's Varma Marga mirrors this. Its rituals, like the Panchamakara, involving wine, meat, fish, grain, and sexual union, transmute taboos into sacraments. A 14th-century tantric text, Kulanava Tantra, instructs, "By passion the world is bound, by passion it is released." Here desire is not the enemy but the alchemist's flame. The left-hand path adopts this ethos, to harness not renounce the sinful drives that religion vilifies. As the Qliphoth's anti-tree devours the Sephiroth's light, the practitioner consumes their own limitations, turning poison into medicine. But what of Foust? His tragedy is often misread. When he demands of Mephistopheles, "Who are you then?" the demon replies, "Part of that power which eternally wills evil and eternally works good." Evil here is not moral but existential, the chaos that shatters stagnation. Faust's true error was not his pact, but his refusal to fully become Mephistopheles, to embrace the amoral creativity of the adversary. The left-hand path demands this metamorphosis, to stop bargaining with demons and be the demon, the god, the void. In the end, the Luciferian principle is a mirror held to the soul's deepest fear, that we are neither special nor damned, but infinite. As the alchemist Fulcanelli wrote in La Mista des Cathedrals, the seeker becomes the stone, the furnace, and the flame. To rebel is not to reject the divine, it is to realize you were never separate from it, and therein lies the razor's edge. Divinity, once claimed, cannot be unclaimed. The fire that illuminates also devours. There is a Tibetan ritual called Poa, where monks visualize their consciousness as a seed ejected through the skull at the moment of death, propelling it into realms beyond karma. The left-hand path adopts this violent grace, not in death but in life. To transform consciousness, one must first murder it. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The left-hand path agrees, but where Jung sought reconciliation, it demands revolution. Consider the Qliphoth, Kabbalah's shadow twin to the Tree of Life. Each of its 11 realms, Gamaliel, the obscene womb, Samael, the venom of God, is a psychic gauntlet. To climb the Qliphoth is to descend into the mind's abattoir, where the self is butchered into its constituent horrors. Thormiel, the realm of twin gods, confronts the adept with a chilling truth. Even divinity is schizophrenic. Here, the aspirant must choose between the madness of duality or the void of singularity. Kenneth Grant in Night Side of Eden called these realms wormholes, tunnels where time and identity unravel. The goal is not enlightenment but disintegration, a shedding of the soul's skin until only the feral, nameless core remains. Tantra's left-handed Varma Marga takes this further. Its practitioners meditate on cremation grounds, smearing ashes on their bodies to commune with the goddess Kali, who dances on corpses. The Vijayana Bhairava Tantra instructs, as waves arise from the ocean and dissolve back into it, so the universe arises from consciousness and dissolves into pure awareness. But the left-hand path does not dissolve. It detonates. A tantrika might ritualize taboo acts, consuming menstrual blood, invoking deities through intercourse, not to shock but to shatter the mind's addiction to purity. Transgression becomes a scalpel, cutting through the veil of Maya to reveal the raw nerve of being. Aleister Crowley's Liber Samic outlines a similar alchemy. The ritual, designed to invoke one's holy guardian angel, demands the magician exalt oneself to the brink of annihilation. Crowley wrote of theurgic madness, a state where the ego is dissolved in the acid of divine will. But the left-hand path twists this. There is no angel, only the abyss staring back. Christopher S. Hyatt's Undoing Yourself with Energized Meditation prescribes hyperventilation, primal screams, and sensory deprivation to induce ego death. The result? A consciousness stripped of pretense, a self reduced to its atomic howl. Jung warned of the dangers of confronting the shadow, the repressed, grotesque self. But the left-hand path does not confront. It consumes. In the Gosha, each demon is a disowned fragment of the psyche. Andras, the Marquis of Discord, embodies the rage society forces us to suppress. To invoke him is not to summon an external entity, but to reclaim one's inner anarchist. As Austin Osman Spare wrote, the demons are the subconscious wants, they are the you dare not name. Kenneth Grant's Typhonian tradition merges this with extraterrestrial mythos. He speaks of the tunnels of Set, interdimensional pathways where human consciousness merges with ultraterrestrial intelligences. These entities, Grant claims, are neither good nor evil, they are other, operating on logic that shatters human morality. To channel them is to risk possession by forces older than gods, but also to gain access to a primordial wellspring of power. The price, sanity. The reward, a consciousness expanded beyond species. Even Nietzsche's eternal recurrence is a left-hand path exercise. Imagine living every moment of your life infinitely, not as a cosmic punishment, but as a dare. What if someday or night a demon were to steal into your loneliest loneliness and say, "This life as you now live it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more." The philosopher's question is a mirror. Would you crumble or exult? The left-hand path answers by forging a self so ruthlessly authentic that eternity becomes a playground, not a prison. But beware the seduction of transformation. The Klepot's tunnels offer no map, only whispers. Tantra's ecstasies can addict the soul to sensation. Crowley's holy guardian angel often resembles a hallucination of one's own ego. As the alchemist Paracelsus warned, the dose makes the poison. To mutate consciousness is to court madness, not the romanticized kind, but the void that swallows language, reason, the very concept of I. Yet this is the path's dark allure. In Dante's Inferno, the poet encounters Ulysses in the eighth circle, condemned for the sin of ambition. Ulysses recounts his final voyage, to explore the world without people, to follow virtue and knowledge. His ship sinks, but his defiance echoes. The left-hand path is that shipwreck, a consciousness shattered on the rocks of the absolute, only to discover that drowning is a form of flight. The left-hand path does not offer answers. It ignites infernos. Its methodologies are not rituals but rebellions, each act a strike against the prison of consensus reality. Consider the sigil, a glyph charged with intent, then killed to bury it in the subconscious. Austin Osman Spare, the occult anarchist who rejected Crowley's dogmas, called this the alphabet of desire. But this is no mere magic trick. It is a metaphysical assassination. By encoding a wish into a symbol and obliterating it from conscious thought, the practitioner murders their own doubt, forcing desire to gestate in the womb of the unseen. Spare's axiom cuts to the bone: belief is the enemy. Aleister Crowley's Gosha takes this further, cataloguing 72 demons as if they were entries in a psychological bestiary. King Baal, who grants invisibility, is not a literal entity but the embodiment of clandestine power, the part of the self that operates unseen. To invoke him is to awaken the inner spy, the shadow that slips through society's cracks. Crowley's Liber OZ proclaims, "Man has the right to kill those who would thwart these rights." But the killing here is symbolic, the annihilation of internalized oppressors, the voices that whisper you can't, you shouldn't, you mustn't. Kenneth Grant, Crowley's heir and heretic, warped these ideas into his Typhonian tradition. He spoke of Zos Kier Cultus, a fusion of Spare's sigils with extraterrestrial communion. In The Magical Revival, Grant describes rituals where adepts channel ultra-terrestrial entities from the star system Sirius, beings that exist outside time's narrow corridor. This is not fantasy, but a deliberate derangement of the senses. By invoking the alien within, the practitioner becomes a stranger to themselves, a necessary step in shedding the skin of the human condition. Christopher S. Hyatt's The Psychopath's Bible strips these concepts of mysticism, reducing them to a brutal pragmatism. Normalcy is a disease, he writes, and the world is its asylum. Hyatt's psychopath is an archetype of pure agency, unburdened by empathy or guilt. His exercises, like staring into a mirror until the reflection becomes unrecognizable, are designed to fracture the mask of identity. The goal, to reach what he terms the cold void, a state of pure amoral will. It's a dangerous game, as Hyatt warns. You can't fake the left-hand path, it eats fakes for breakfast. Tantra's Varma Marga offers a parallel path. Its Panchamakara rituals, wine, meat, fish, grains, sexual union, are not indulgences but acts of alchemical treason. The Kulonava Tantra states, by the very acts that bind some, others are freed. A tantrika might ritualize forbidden acts not to rebel against society, but to dissolve the internal censor that conflates transgression with sin. The left-hand path's genius lies here. It turns poison into medicine, using the very taboos that shackle the masses as keys to their liberation. Even the Key of Solomon, a grimoire steeped in angelic piety, harbors a shadow curriculum. Its pentacles and incantations, ostensibly designed to command spirits, are really blueprints for commanding the self. The infamous hexagram of Solomon, used to summon planetary spirits, becomes a mirror when viewed through the left-hand path. Each line and curve reflects the practitioner's fractured psyche, demanding integration not through prayer but through force. But what of Foust? His pact with Mephistopheles is the ultimate left-hand path allegory. When he signs the contract in blood, he isn't selling his soul. He's rejecting the very idea that the soul is a fixed commodity. Goethe's Mephistopheles quips, "I am the spirit that always denies." This denial is the engine of transformation. To say no to heaven, no to hell, no to every preordained role is to carve a space where the self can be rebuilt from ashes. The danger is omnipresent. Jung cautioned that whoever looks into the mirror of the water sees their own face and the face of the devil. The left-hand path doesn't just look, it shatters the mirror. What emerges from the shards is neither angel nor demon, but something raw and unnameable. Crowley's Book of the Law declares, if the ritual is not a suicide, it is a farce. Here, suicide is the death of the illusory self, the you constructed by others. The rituals are knives, the demons are surgeons, the only salvation is the scalpel. Time does not flow, it shatters. In the left-hand path, chronology is not a river but a hall of mirrors, each reflection a splintered self peering back from alternate destinies. Consider Nietzsche's eternal recurrence, the proposition that every joy, every agony, every mundane breath will replay infinitely. What if a demon whispered that you must live this life, over and over in perpetuity? He taunts. For the LHP practitioner, this is no hypothetical horror. It is a dare. To embrace recurrence is to sculpt each moment into a masterpiece of will, to burn so fiercely that even eternity cannot dull your flame. But time here is not a cage, it is clay. The Qlipothic realm of Samael, the venom of God, embodies this. In Kabbalistic lore, Samael is the angel of death, yet in the Qlipot he becomes the gatekeeper of temporal dissolution. To traverse his domain is to witness time's corpse, past, present and future rotting into a single festering now. Kenneth Grant wrote of eon time, where linear history collapses into mythic loops. Practitioners of Typhonian magic ritually invoke this state, merging with entities like Lam, the gaunt, extraterrestrial visage Crowley sketched in 1918, to perceive reality through the lens of the outside. Time in these moments becomes a weapon, a spell, a lie. Identity follows suit. The Tibetan Poa ritual, where consciousness is visualized as a luminous seed ejected through the fontanel, is not reserved for death. The left-hand path appropriates this violent rebirth, using it to fracture the ego's ossified shell. Jungian psychology speaks of integrating the shadow, but the LHP demands more: annihilation. Aleister Crowley's Liber Roman 15 describes a rite where the magician declares, "There is no part of me that is not of the gods." Yet here, the gods are not divine overseers but shards of the practitioner's splintered psyche. To invoke the Gotic demon Andras, sower of discord, is to resurrect the inner saboteur, the part of you that would rather burn a life to ashes than live it in chains. Faust's tragedy hinges on this alchemy. When he trades his soul to Mephistopheles, he is not bartering a fixed essence but a construct. Goethe's protagonist wails, "Two souls, alas, dwell in my breast." The left-hand path retorts, "You have 1,000. The practice of soul dualism, found in ancient shamanic traditions, posits that the self is a parliament of spirits. Modern LHP adepts literalize this, using sigils to dissociate into archetypal shards. The lover, the destroyer, the strategist. Christopher S. Hyatt's Undoing Yourself prescribes ego vandalism, staring into a mirror until your reflection morphs into a stranger, then bowing to it as your new master. Dante's Inferno offers a covert manual for this fracturing. As the poet descends through hell's concentric torments, he encounters sinners frozen in symbolic contortions, the lustful whipped by winds, the traitors encased in ice. The left-hand path inverts this pilgrimage. Here the adept becomes the contortionist, twisting identity into impossible shapes to escape the prison of a singular self. The ninth circle's icy lake, where Satan gnaws on Judas, Brutus and Cassius, is not a punishment but a revelation. Betrayal of others is trivial. The real sin is loyalty to a false self. Integration, then, is not synthesis but orchestrated chaos. Tantra's Varma Marga rituals, like the Panchamakara, which sanctifies wine, meat and intercourse, teach that enlightenment lies not in renouncing desire, but in riding it like a comet. The Kulanava Tantra warns, the same fire that cooks food can burn a forest. The LHP practitioner becomes both arsonist and phoenix, incinerating the old identity to rise from the cinders. Even the Key of Solomon, with its angelic seals, hides a shadow doctrine. The Pentacle's 5 points symbolize the elements, but inverted, they map the 5 poisons of the psyche: greed, wrath, delusion, pride, envy, transmuted into fuel. Yet this path is strewn with phantoms. Jung cautioned that the shadow, when ignored, becomes the serpent in the garden. The left-hand path agrees and hands you the knife. To dance with Mephistopheles is to realize that the self you fear losing was never yours to begin with. As Crowley's Book of the Law thunders, if the ritual is not a suicide, it is a farce. Here, suicide is sacrament. The true ritual is the moment you peer into the abyss and realize the abyss has been peering back through you all along. In the end, time and identity are not obstacles but raw materials. The alchemist's mercury, the sculptor's marble, the arsonist's kindling. Faust's error was clinging to the illusion of a soul. The left-hand path offers no such comfort. It demands you become both the clockmaker and the hourglass, the sculptor and the stone. And when the last grain of sand falls, you'll find it was never sand at all, but stardust, waiting to be reshaped. The alchemist's crucible glows not with gold, but with the residue of burned illusions. Practical application of the left-hand path is not a checklist, it is a controlled demolition. Imagine a surgeon operating on their own heart or an arsonist who builds to burn. This is the paradox. Techniques designed to shatter the self must be wielded by a self skilled enough to survive its own destruction. Crowley's Liber ABA cautions, the first task of the magician is to distinguish between the real and the unreal, yet the left-hand path retorts, nothing is real, so everything is permitted. Take sigils, those encoded desires. Austin Osman Spare's method demands more than doodling a wish and setting it aflame. True sigil work is psychic vivisection. A practitioner might spend weeks in sensory deprivation, etching the glyph into their mind until it bleeds into the subconscious. The killing of the sigil is not a one-time act, but a ritual suicide of linear intent. As Spare wrote, the sigil dies so that the desire may live in the womb of the unmanifest. This is not magic. It is metaphorical arson, burning the bridge between will and outcome to force the universe to rebuild it. The Gaucher's demons, too, are tools of ruthless introspection. Invoking Baal, the three-headed king who grants invisibility, is less about hiding from others than becoming invisible to oneself. A modern adept might use this evocation to stalk their own psyche, observing repressed ambitions or buried rages as a predator studies prey. Crowley's Moonchild experiments took this further, attempting to incarnate lunar energies into a human vessel. The result? A chaotic mess of egomania and psychosis. Yet failure here is the point. The left-hand path prizes catastrophic revelation over tidy success. Christopher S. Hyatt's Undoing Yourself prescribes energized meditation, a blend of hyperventilation, primal screaming and proprioceptive torture, holding painful poses until the body betrays the mind. One exercise involves screaming, "I am not," until the throat bleeds and the ego hemorrhages. Hyatt's warning is stark. This will break you, but what breaks is not you. The goal is not catharsis but systemic collapse, forcing the psyche to reboot in a raw, unprogrammed state. Tantra's Varma Marga offers a parallel path. Consider Maithuna, ritual intercourse. Unlike the vapid sacred sex of New Age workshops, authentic left-handed Maithuna is a weaponized taboo. Partners might ingest each other's sexual fluids as a sacrament, not for pleasure but to fuse their shadow selves. The Gahyasamaja Tantra instructs, by consuming the forbidden, one becomes the forbidden. This is alchemy of the grotesque, transforming societal poison into elixir. Even the Key of Solomon hides pragmatic heresies. Its pentacles, often dismissed as medieval doodles, are psychological schematics. The fifth pentacle of Mars, a sword-wreathed hexagram, is traditionally used to invoke warlike vigor. The left-hand path repurposes it as a mirror, staring into its geometry until the mind's pacifying filters crack, allowing raw aggression to surface. The practitioner doesn't control the anger, they become it, then dissolve it. As the Kabbalistic axiom warns, the sword that heals is the sword that kills. Kenneth Grant's Typhonian trilogies propose rituals involving vampiric sigils, glyphs charged not with desire but absence. By meditating on these voids, the adept inverts the standard magical formula. Instead of manifesting will, they unmanifest the self. Imagine a sculptor chiseling away not marble but the space around it. What remains is not art but the silence between notes. Faust's synthesis lies in his final act. In Goethe's version, Mephistopheles loses the wager because Faust's relentless striving, even in delusion, redeems him. The left-hand path twists this. Redemption is irrelevant. What matters is motion. A practitioner might emulate Foust by drafting a literal contract with their shadow, signing in their own blood, metaphorical or otherwise, with clauses demanding perpetual reinvention. The devil here is not a punisher but a personal trainer from hell. But danger pulses in every step. Jung's Red Book documents his descent into the unconscious, where he conversed with inner phantoms named Fileman and Salome. The left-hand path would label this insufficient. Why chat with archetypes when you can consume them? A modern Jungian might perform a shadow feast, ritually ingesting symbols of their darkest traits, e.g., burning a list of moral failures and mixing the ashes into wine. The ritual's power lies not in the act, but in the irreversible commitment. Once drunk, there's no unknowing the dregs of one's abyss. The ultimate synthesis is non-synthesis. Dante's journey through hell, purgatory, and paradise ends in a vision of God as an infinite geometric paradox. The left-hand path halts at the inferno's edge, rejecting the celestial carrot. Its practitioners become infernal cartographers, mapping damnation not to escape it, but to plant a flag in its core. As the Cleopothic mantra hisses, "I am the wound and the knife, the slap and the cheek, the limb and the wheel." To walk this path is to cease seeking and become the search itself. Yet a warning hums beneath it all. In Paracelsus, selected writings the alchemist scribbles, the dose makes the poison. The left-hand path's techniques are overdoses by design. What shatters the unworthy catalyzes the adept, or so the myth goes. The truth is messier. For every Crowley who emerged from the abyss with a new cosmology, 100 vanished into madness. The path offers no guarantees, only a question etched in the void. How much of yourself are you willing to lose to become what you are? The flame that guided you here does not flicker, it consumes. This is the unspoken truth of the left-hand path. Every revelation is a funeral pyre. You began this journey seeking light, but the light you found was your own shadow stretched to infinity. Dante emerged from hell with stars etched into his eyes. Faust grasped for the divine and found his reflection in Mephistopheles' grin. Lucifer's fall was not a descent but an excavation. What remains when the dust of dogma settles? Not answers but a question. Who are you when no one is watching, not even yourself? The left-hand path is a hall of mirrors, each pane cracked to distort. Nietzsche's Übermensch strides through it, shattering glass with every step, for he knows he who fights monsters must see to it that he himself does not become a monster. But here the axiom twists. You must become the monster to survive the gaze of the abyss. Crowley's Book of the Law hisses, the exposure of innocence is a lie. Innocence, after all, is the first mask burned on this path. What rises from the ash is neither pure nor corrupt, but feral, a will unbound by the theatre of morality. Consider the Qlipot's final gate, Thormiel, the twin gods. To stand here is to confront the ultimate schism, the self split into creator and destroyer, god and heretic, lover and executioner. Kenneth Grant called this the crown of hell, a realm where duality collapses into a scream. The practitioner who survives this does not emerge enlightened. They emerge unmade. Jung warned of the shadow's seduction, but the left-hand path laughs. Seduce it back. Dance with your demons until you forget which one leads. Faust's final moments hold the cipher. In Goethe's version, angels salvage his soul because he never stopped striving, a sop to moralists. The left-hand path scoffs, striving is irrelevant. What matters is the act itself, the raw gnash of will against the void. Mephistopheles, that grinning midwife of chaos, whispers the truth. I am part of that power which eternally wills evil and eternally works good. Evil here is not malice but motion, the chaos that scours stagnation. To walk this path is to become both storm and wreckage. Christopher S. Hyatt's Psychopath's Bible ends with a challenge. Close this book, burn it, see if you can. The dare is not to destroy the text, but to confront your own reluctance, the part of you that still clings to the rails of normalcy. Hyatt's psychopath is no criminal. They are a blacksmith of the soul, hammering the soft iron of conditioning into a blade. But blades cut both ways. Tantra's Varma Marga rituals, those sacraments of wine and flesh, teach that desire is the whetstone. Use it to sharpen your edge and you may carve open heaven. Misuse it and you'll sever your own throat. Aleister Crowley once wrote, "The magician must create the universe in his own image." The left-hand path corrects him. You are the universe's afterthought. Now rewrite the script. Sigils, Gothic evocations, Typhonian rites, these are not tools but provocations. They dare the cosmos to reject you, and when it does not, you're left with the chilling truth. There was never anything to reject. The demons were drafts of yourself, discarded and disowned. The angels were apologies for your hunger. Dante's Inferno ends with the poet climbing from hell's pit to see the stars, a metaphor for hope. The left-hand path revises the ending. The stars were always there, even in the pit. You were just too busy burning to look up. This is the path's final paradox. The abyss you feared was your own limitless sky. The chains you fought were the weightless threads of a marionette, and you were never the puppet. You were the hand. So where does it end? It doesn't. The left-hand path is our Ouroboros, a serpent swallowing its tail, a cycle of becoming and unbecoming. To finish is to fail. Nietzsche's eternal recurrence is not a curse but a gift, the chance to relive your choices with the ferocity of one who knows they'll repeat them. You are the ritual, you are the offering, you are the flame. As the screen fades to black, remember this. The most dangerous thing about the left-hand path is not the demons, the sigils, or the voids. It's the realization that you enjoyed the burn. And somewhere in the silence between breaths, a match strikes, ready to ignite it all again.